Toronto, Reuters. Canadian home sale prices hit a record high in August, their 9th consecutive monthly gain. So home resale prices have hit another record high in August 2011. What you're looking at here is a chart concerning the housing prices and the housing bubble that has developed in Canada. If you look here, the price of housing, $350,000. Now look at it grow, it grow, it grow. Look at the bubble, look at the bubble. Bang. To where we are now. September 2011, where you've got houses at $900,000 that were once before $350,000. This is a bubble. That the same thing the United States of America went through. And when this crashes, this top price here where you see is going to go all the way back down to here. And the people who own houses are not going to be able to afford them. Statistics Canada. The blue line represents the housing bubble that America went through. Look how it went up, 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 and then crashed. Same thing that you're seeing with the new home prices in Canada and the US. The blue line is the US, as you see. And there's the bubble. And now Canada also is the red line, going up, up, up. Now you see the turning coming down. So as you see in the charts, the housing prices in Canada, they are way, way up. You got houses here in Canada now that were worth $350,000 a couple of years ago that are worth $900,000 now, close to $1 million. If you look at the chart, you see the continuous climb of the prices and the cost of the house. And if you compare it to America, it's very similar. Now, we all know that America had a housing bubble, and that's what caused one of the reasons that American had the collapse in 2008, 2009. But nevertheless, they call it a housing bubble because the prices of the houses just keep on going up and up and up. Mr. Lee, he's interested in buying a house right now. It's pretty easy here in Canada to get a mortgage, a hypothèque, a loan for a house, and the interest rates are very low. So Mr. Lee, he's interested in buying a house. And he's interested in buying a house that's worth $500,000 right now. That's what he sees it on the market for. The value of the house is $500,000. So Mr. Lee went to the bank and he got one of these easy loans, an easy mortgage. And he's got a pretty low rate because the prime rate now, the interest rate, the banks are keeping it low because of what's going on in the economy. So he's very happy now. He's got his house for $500,000 and he doesn't have to renew his mortgage. He locked into only 3 years. Mr. Lee only locked in for 3 years. The house that Mr. Lee happened to be looking at belonged to Mrs. Long. She was the owner of the house that Mr. Lee was looking at. And she had bought her house for $180,000 about 8 years ago. And now through the bubble, what's happened, her house has become $500,000. It's worth $500,000. So there's a huge profit for Mrs. Long to make off of this deal here. So she decided that it's in her best interest to sell it to Mr. Lee. So that's what she did. She sold her house to Mr. Lee for $500,000 that she once had bought for $180,000 8 years ago before the bubble pushed up the prices of the market. So now Mrs. Long is very happy because she's made a huge profit, and Mr. Lee is happy because he thinks he's made a good deal because he's got a house at $500,000 that he thinks he's got locked in, or that he got in a loan that wasn't that expensive. So let's say this is a housing bubble and it is going to crash, and I'm under the impression that that's exactly what's going to happen. The same thing that happened in the States is about to happen here in Canada. So it's 3 years later now, 2011, 2012, and Mr. Lee here, his house is devalued. It was once $500,000 3 years ago. Now it's only worth $300,000. So if he was to try and sell his house, it would only be worth $300,000 for him. But he still owes $460,000 on that original $500,000 that he took a loan or a mortgage for to buy the house. So now his term is up and he needs to get a remortgage for his house. So he goes to the bank and he says, I need to remortgage. I still owe you guys $460,000 for the house that I bought. And he says, can you please renew my loan? Can you please make a new loan for me for my mortgage? And the bank says, well, hang on a second. Your house is only worth $300,000. If you default on your loan to us, if you don't pay us the promise that you gave to pay, then we'll only be able to sell your house for $300,000. If we lend you $460,000, there's $160,000 that we cannot recuperate, that we're going to lose. So the bank is going to refuse to give him the loan. He's going to refuse to give the mortgage for $460,000 that he owes. The best they're going to do is to say, well, we'll give you the value of that house on the market now, which is $300,000, but you still owe us another $160,000, Mr. Lee. Where are you going to get that money, Mr. Lee? Are you going to take a private loan, Mr. Lee? Do you have credit cards, Mr. Lee? Can your family help you, Mr. Lee? Because you have to come up with $160,000 in order for us to give you the $300,000 so you can pay us back the $460,000 that you owe us. Mr. Lee works hard. Mr. Lee goes out, he has a job. He works, he puts his energy into gaining money, fiat currency. And now Mr. Lee is about to lose his house. Because Mr. Lee paid $500,000 for his house. But because the market has crashed, the artificial market that they pushed up, his house is now only worth $300,000. But he still owes the bank for this house $460,000. And Mr. Lee has no way of getting $160,000. There's no way for him to get that. So now he's going to lose his property. And the bank is going to take over his property and become legal person or juridical personality, but they're going to have the ownership right to Mr. Lee's property. Now the worst thing about all this, and I'm not here to teach about the banking system right now, I'm not here to give my opinion about the banking system right now, because I'm not a teacher, trust me. But the bank gave Mr. Lee $500,000, okay, that's what they claim. Now, using the multiplication factor upon deposits that is in operation here in Canada, if you don't understand what that is, multiplication factor on deposits, you'll have to go and check it out on YouTube. Just go and run some videos and you'll see the way the monetary system is in operation. However, using this application that they're using, the money that they created was money from nothing. It was money artificially created by punching in numbers in the computer and giving it to Mr. Lee. It's called a promise to pay that the bank deposits in a bank account. It's not real money, but a promise to pay. So the bank never put up anything. The bank was never in jeopardy of losing anything. It was Mr. Lee who was working hard with his energy to get those, what we call money, which is another form of promise to pay, to give it to the bank. So the banks, they create that $500,000 out of nothing. They're not in jeopardy of losing anything. But through the process of the bubble, through the number work, as you've seen, through paperwork and numbers, their bank, which is a legal person under law, gets the ownership right to the real property. They get to claim the right to own that house because of what they've done. And this is being set up upon many Canadians all across our country. The ones who owned their home before and now sold it in the bubble, they're not to blame. It's the ones who are creating the bubble now. Because if they can get more people right now to lock into mortgages and for ridiculous amounts for a house, knowing that it's going to crash, the banks are going to get the ownership to all these properties outright.